All right, guys, so before we get started, there was a question on the homework assignment from point 3.
Good.
I'm going to borrow your note sheet just so I can have the... So there was a question on 20 and which other one? 20 and 29. 20 and 29. Now 20 states that we have a horizontal stretch by a factor of 4 for the function f of x equals x plus 3. Now when we talk about a horizontal stretch or shrink, our general form is our f of a times x for horizontal stretch and shrink, where a is the amount of the stretch or shrink. Now because we do know that it's horizontal, we have to flip it, whatever the factor is. So if the factor is 4, we have to flip it from 4 to 1/4. And at this point, we're just going to plug it in for x into the function. And since it only shows up in one place, our new function is going to be the absolute value of 1/4 x plus 3. Okay. For 29, we have a translation of 2 units to the right, followed by a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2. So 2 units to the right is going to be our f of x minus h, where h is the value of the translation left or right. Now, since it's 2 units to the right, we know that the value of h is going to be positive 2, or just 2. Now, even though it looks in the function to be minus 2, that's the minus is a part of the standard notation, part of the general form. Now, at this point here, we're going to plug this in for x. Well, the only thing we have is the absolute value of x. So this is just going to become the absolute value of x minus 2. We replaced x with x minus 2, and we actually just get this here. You're good?
Absolute value is just on the x and then add minus 2.
So let me rewrite this in another way. Because for us here, the x is really just taking a place that we know where it's at. So if I put, say, 6 in here, be 6 in the box, yes? Well, we didn't put 6 here. I actually need to give myself a little more room. Inside this box, we had x minus 2, yes? So what goes inside this box would not be 6, it would be...
Oh, I see now. I thought...
Yep.
Okay. My bad.
You're good? Because this is one way to think of it, because that number or letter inside the parentheses is just holding a spot. What are we plugging into the function? And it just matches up to the other side. Now, that wasn't the only transformation, because the next thing it told us is that we are making a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2. So now we can look at g of a times x. Now, we've been using f of x a lot of the times for this, and I'll give you that back here in a second.
Oh, it's okay.
But really, the lettering for g of x, h of x is just so we know the difference between the functions. So if we name it, we know which one we're talking about. Now, they said it's a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2. But with horizontal stretch, we have to flip it, so it's going to change from 2 to 1/2. Well, just like with the first part, now we're going to replace x with 1/2 x. So we would have the absolute value of 1/2 x minus 2. But that's it. The last one is the final answer. So we use the middle one here. This is the after the first transformation, then the second one's after we did the last one. So whenever I do multiple translations, I would just keep going. So if we had another translation after that, it said then it moved it up 2, then I would say, so we did f of x, we've done g of x, h of x. We could say the next one's m of x or n of x. I mean, we can just keep going. It's just a way to name it. Yes, sir. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because if it had done it the other way around,
This was kind of easy.
it would have been 2x plus 2.
Okay.
Because if we did the vertical, if we moved it up 1 and then the vertical stretch, because we'd have x plus 1 and then we'd multiply the whole thing by 2. That's kind of why the order matters, because it can change depending on how we apply the functions in what order.
So on 29, you want both of the answers, or just that?
This here is the final answer, yeah. Questions on this here? Quickly. So I believe this is the one we finished on yesterday, yes? Talking with the bike or the person walking, yes? This one here is our next one, and hopefully y'all notice there is a little bit of an improvement with the slides. So I did have time yesterday to go back and redo these to make them a little bit clearer, a little bit more legible. And I'm getting used to the fact that I don't have to make the wording so big for y'all to be able to read it, since these new boards are nicer, brighter, and easier to read. We'll do 1 or 2 more of these here, and then we're actually going to be done with this here, because again, writing the equation of the line should be something you're familiar with, you've done before, not too over the top, nothing too new. Because there's two main ways that we write the equation of line. One of them is point-slope form, and one of them is slope-intercept form. So, let's look at this here. And this here is one of the ones we would consider an application problem, because we're applying it to a real-world situation. Now here, 2 prom venues charge a rental fee plus a fee per student. The table shows the total cost for different number of students at Lakeside Inn. The total cost Y in dollars for X students at Sunside, so Lakeside Inn. So that's the table here. The total cost Y in dollars for X number of students at Sunview Resort is represented by the equation Y equals 10X plus 600. Which venue charges less per student? How many students must attend for the total cost to be the same? Okay, so they're asking 2 questions. They're asking 2 main questions. The first one is which one charges less per student? And then at how many students will these 2 be the same? So the real thing that we need to find out is, well, we need more information about Lakeside Inn. Because Sunview Resort charges how much per student? Because again, when we look at the X and Y, so X is the number of students, yes? Y is the total cost. So if we're talking about number of students, whatever they're charging per student should be our slope. So Sunview Resort is charging $10 per student. Now, for Lakeside, all we need to do is find the slope, because if I find the slope, I can find out how much they're charging per student, because that's the only thing that's increasing from one to the next. Questions on this here? So we need y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So it told us already the total cost is y, the number of students is x. So what's one y value we can use? We have 5 to choose. 1,500. What's another y value we can choose? 270. 2,700. Now we just need to pick the corresponding x value. So for 1,500 it is 100 minus, for 2,700 it is 200. Did it really matter which two y values we chose? No, because as long as this is a linear function, the slope or the rate of change between any of these should be the same. Now at this point here, could I plug this all into a calculator? Yeah. So 1,500 minus 2,700 is going to be negative $1,200. Negative 1,200. Well, 100 minus 200 is negative 100. Well, negative divided by negative is going to make this positive, yes? What is 1,200 divided by 100? Zeros cancel, zeros cancel. Because when we divide by 10, we just move the decimal one spot over. So 100, we would move it 2. Huh? Yeah, essentially we're just dropping the zeros. Because how many times does 100 go into 1,200? 12 times. So the cost per student for Lakeside Inn is $12. So the first question, which venue charges less per student? Sunview Resort. That's the first part of our answer, because Sunview Resort charges less per student. Now we need to figure out how many students must attend for the total cost to be the same. Well, it'd be nice to know the equation for Lakeside Inn. Because if we know the equation for Lakeside Inn, we can actually start figuring this out. Any questions on this so far? I'm going to erase this here so that I have a little bit more room to work and we can look at both pieces of information at the same time. So I'm going to use point slope because we don't have the y-intercept because we don't know what it is. We could kind of probably figure it out, but we don't know for sure. So we can use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Well, we know the slope is 12. Now we just need to pick one of these points. Which one do y'all want to use? The first one, so 100 and 1,500. So we can plug 100 in for x1, 1,500 in for y1. So I just picked one of those points, and we're going to plug it in and then get y by itself. Well, the first thing we can do is distribute the 12. Twelve times x is 12 times 100. Bless you. 1,200. Last but not least, we need to add 1,500 to both sides. And if we add 1,500 to both sides, these cancel, telling us y is equal to 12x plus 300. Any questions on this here? We're good with this here. We understand how we got the two equations, yes? So what are we wanting to figure out now that we have these? How many students must attend for the total cost to be the? So the value of y for both of these equations will be the same, yes? Because that's cost. So what we're saying is that 12x plus 300 should equal what? 10x plus 600, because we're looking for where the y's are the same. If they're the same, it means the other two must be equal as well. So we're looking to see where 10x plus 600 is going to equal 12x plus 300. We want to see where these are the same. So we just need to solve for x. We set them equal to each other to solve for the value of x. So what can we do first? Okay. I would subtract 10x. I subtract 10x from both sides because I'm trying to keep the value of x positive, so since it's kind of a little bit easier to work with. Now 10x minus 10x is 0, telling me 600 is equal to 2x, because 12x minus 10x, 12 minus 10 is 2, plus 300. Now what can we do next? We can subtract 300. $600 minus 300 is, and last but not least, we would minus x is so how many students? And that's it. Because that's where they're going to be the same, yes? Which one's cheaper if we have less than 150 students? So the y-intercepts are b, yes? For these two equations, we have this one here, and I'll write the one below it. You don't have to write the one below it. I'm just putting it down here so we can see it. These are our two equations, yes? So at 0 students, Lakeside Inn would cost us how much? 300, yes? The resort's going to cost us $600 if we have 0 students, yes? So which one's starting out more expensive? Yeah, the Sunview Resort is starting out more expensive, yes? So if we have less than 150 students, we don't want the resort, we want Lakeside Inn because they're cheaper. Because they have a cheaper starting cost. But once we hit 150 students, they are the exact same. After we get past 150 students, Lakeside Inn's more expensive than the other one. Does that make sense? Kind of, sort of. So we can graph these here. So our first equation was 10x plus 600. That was the first equation we had, yes? The other equation we had was 12x plus 300. Now for this one here, we have to mess with the window a little bit. Let's say 600 by 60 0 to, let's do 30,000 because I don't think any on either one it went above 30,000. No, I don't even think it went that high. Yeah, no. Figure that out. Let's do 5,000 because I just want to give us a kind of an idea of what it looks like. So that's our first one, and there's our second one, the one that has the cost of $12 per student. Well, we do see at a certain point one of them is increasing faster. It does pass it up, yes? So at that point where they cross is our 150 students. That's where the costs are the same. And then the one that had a lower starting cost actually starts costing more. Questions on this here? Okay. Any other questions on any of this here? Do we feel kind of comfortable with this? Okay. Instead of boring y'all with another one of these here, we're not going to worry about line of best fit. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to give you the rest of the time to work on the assignment. So if you do have questions, I can come around and help. Yes.
Why couldn't you just divide this by this? Because I got 15, by the way. Why couldn't you do that?
That would work if the initial starting cost was 0.
Okay, now that's what I'm confused about.